Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another edition of the show. Stardate 2015.280 at 22:13 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you very much for joining us all here, ladies and gentlemen. And we will be having some fun tonight. I'm joined tonight by our Chief Logistics Officer, Captain Timberwolf. Please lead us off with a good house, sir. Somebody got some action this week. Seriously, what the heck was that? Wow. Okay. Nice. Thank you. Our Chief Intelligence Officer, Captain Sarcasm Detector.
Hi.
You know what? I think you should be more excited than that because I believe Canada has something wonderful to celebrate.
Okay. Hi.
I see the
Didn't even do his
excitement.
traditional greetings.
Shock. I am shocked, indeed. Indeed. Our Chief of QQ Science Officer, Captain Snipey 47 Alpha, is away on assignment. Something about Drazana filming and our penis, so yeah, he's gonna have fun with that. Our Chief of Smelly, Cheesy, Dirty Tactics, Captain SOB, though, is here tonight.
Hello. I think I'm just starting to regain my hearing after that, Hal.
I'm still ringing from it, man. I'm still ringing from it. Our Chief Ironic Medic, Captain MK, is talking with the United States government right now and trying to figure out why Doctors Without Borders has been harmed. So our thoughts and good intentions are out to those folks who have suffered greatly over at Doctors Without Borders. We know that they've lost not only a lot of talent, but a lot of good people who are trying to do good things out there. So keep up the good work, everybody who wants to help humanity improve upon itself. Don't get discouraged. Keep doing it and keep applying pressure to our governments, whether in the United States of America or abroad. We want to make the world a better place. Let's keep doing it whatever way we can. Our Chief Emergency Role-Playing Hologram is also on special assignment right now, doing some good work out there. We will hear back from him later on when he returns next week. And I am just here trying to make sure that everybody stays together, works together, and plays together nicely and have a good time doing it. So we're going to jump straight into the show here. First thing right off the gate. Some people have received a mail stating that there are going to be some major downtime for network improvements. Can any of you who did receive the email could elaborate on the details of that?
Yes, we got an email. I believe I got it as well. Kind of skimmed
Yes,
through
I
it.
got one as well.
But next week, next Tuesday, October the 13th, there will be a 12-hour downtime across all Perfect Worlds games. That includes games from Cryptic, so Star Trek Online, Neverwinter, etc. will be down. And the reason for it being is that they're doing some kind of critical network improvements, whatever that means.
The one I got shows 13 hours, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
14 hours.
All right. Now, I did not receive that mail, and for any person here, actually in my household, because my daughters play the game on occasion as well as I do, obviously, and on all of our accounts, none of us received that email. So, for those who didn't get it, surprise, there's going to be network outage. We're going to post a date up on our notes here with the show, as well as post it up on Reddit if it hasn't been posted multiple times on Reddit. And we're trying to see if we could just spread the word around in game, just to let people know, hey, this is going to happen. So,
Well, the good thing is that shortly after those emails went out, within a day, it was posted on various things by the ARC and Star Trek Online. So they have been trying to make for sure that the word does go out, even if you're not getting the email. Because I have seen postings on Facebook for it.
Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, the forums, pretty much everywhere it's going to be mentioned. But despite all of that, they can shout it from the top of the mountains. People come Tuesday are going to be pissed off that the game is down because I don't know, they live under a rock for some reason and didn't get the message.
Hey,
Confirming.
hey, I don't live under a rock.
Under a bridge?
Close enough.
Under a torpedo?
No. On torpedo housings, maybe, but yeah, not under a bridge. Anyway, with that said, moving on. If you have not seen the revamp of LootCritter's site, please go there to lootcritter.com. Look at it. It's a thing of beauty. Enjoy it. I enjoy the revamp and what he's done. The layout is nice. It just jumps out at you, says, look at me, click this, read more. He is also running a contest, so please go through. If you want to win something, want a chance of winning something, by all means go ahead and jump in on the contest and enjoy it. The articles that he has up with about Thomas Marone, very, very informative. Please do read it. Please do check it out.
Yes.
Great stuff on that one. Oh, please jump in.
Yeah, this is something we forgot to talk about last week. I guess we had too much stuff to talk about. But what this is LootCritter did a interview with Thomas the Cryptic Cat quite a while back. Some of us kind of knew something was coming along those lines, not the details, of course. But it took a while. It's been, I guess, approved for release, and it's such a long interview that it's going to take him about 4 or 5 weeks to publish it all. So what he's doing is every week, every Monday, he is publishing part of that interview. It's actually that long. And in the process, it's basically his 1-year anniversary as a blogger. So he's doing a giveaway as well. So there are multiple ways to enter this giveaway. Each week, there are 2 questions that you can answer. One of them is basically reply to something. He asks you something about his articles. And the second question has something to do in general about STO. So there's 2 ways to enter that. At the end of the 5 weeks, he's giving away quite a lot of stuff. I believe there's like an Anorax in there, maybe a Jem'Hadar strike ship or 2, among other things. So you definitely check it out, lootcritter.com. His site has been improved. It looks absolutely gorgeous now. So highly recommended from everyone here on the show. Check out lootcritter.com. If for anything, just the information that he gives out is extremely useful and entertaining sometimes, and might actually be educational. Wow. Before we jump on to the next part, Spencer did point out something that is coming tomorrow.
He did.
Yes.
There's a blog that was just released today called Galactic Restoration. Now, the link is on the site there for you, Odin, by the way. And what this says, basically, for the next 3 weeks, there is this is something that they did not too long ago. Starting off tomorrow, it is, just trying to read this real quick. Captains contributing to a global effort to rebuild the quadrant in the aftermath of our war against the Iconians. For the first week, running from October 8th to October 15th, captains can aid the recovery efforts by completing fleet projects and earning fleet credits. Based on the contributions made by all captains during this week, a bonus reputation marks week will be unlocked for the following week, with bonuses of 25, 50, or 75%. So I guess it's going to be a 3-tiered contribution thing.
It'll be similar to how the Delta event was.
Exactly.
With those weekly events, yes.
That's the first week. It's going to be to unlock basically a Marks weekend. The following week, the second week, is going to be a skill point and experience. So This would be doing duty officer assignments. The more duty officer assignments will unlock a 50, 100, or 150% skill point bonus and expertise bonus. Third week, there's not going to be any actions taken, and the only reward will be event unlocked from the previous week's effort. So I guess it's extending the.
No, but so we have no bonus here the first week. This first week is just building up. Then the second week we'll have the first reward, and during that week we'll be building up for the second reward week.
And the third week will be the reward.
The second reward.
Yes. Okay. So that is certainly interesting. The mark, basically a marks weekend, or not a weekend, a whole week of bonus mark followed by a whole week of bonus expertise that we actually have to do a little bit of grinding for. This actually the marks one will probably help out the smaller fleets out that are still building up. The bigger fleets will probably have all their projects maxed out, but it's still something. I wonder if the contributions you make towards an armada, a fleet in your armada, count for this as well. Most probably it does.
It should, based off of previous history.
So that is certainly very interesting, and it starts out with tomorrow's patch. And we'll add the notes for that in our show notes.
Thank you very much for that last minute showstopper news, which I was actually getting ready to post myself, and then Spencer was like, oh, good, I have the site already up, so good. It worked out nicely. We also have here the new Tier 6 Dreadnoughts that will be released tomorrow. Please, can we get some information on that, gentlemen?
Yes, I'll start off because one of the things that I've loved and I've yet to own in this game is the Galaxy Dreadnought, the iconic ship we've seen from All Good Things, the final episode of Next Generation. And with this, that's one of your offerings. Now, the one thing I will mention, you have to actually go through each ship to look at the variations, because while they are coming as a pack, they have their own individuality as far as their setup, which, from my personal opinion, I like that each different race is going to have a slightly different flair. So we're going into first the Yamato, your Tier 6 Galaxy Dreadnought. And looking at the bridge officer layout, I've been looking at it for the past day and a half, as long as it's been out. Going on that layout, I would see that with the Lieutenant Commander Tactical, Ensign Universal, you don't have a lot of tactical offerings, whereas you have a Lieutenant Commander Engineering Command, a Commander Engineering, and a Lieutenant Science. So you're probably not going to have a lot of raw damage output, but this is something, especially in the fleet version with the extra tactical slot, I could see this as a tanking build. I could honestly see it as a broadsiding tank, considering its ability package for the Dreadnought Cruiser. I mean, I could really see that. It would be a nice tanking vessel, and you have plenty of options to run with your engineering and command abilities. You've got ability to load dual cannons, though personally I would not. The trait, though. The trait is interesting because of the ability to have your lance that you already have built in, or if you're using overloads, it triggers a shield heal, a hardness buff, and restores offline shields. That would be very nice considering the tanking build, or if you're just wanting to stay alive a little bit more. That's a nice trait to have. One thing that we currently do want to look at is if the overmod on weapons will also proc this. Now, currently the thinking is no, but if it does, that would be a nice thing to have on your weapons if you're using this trait. The console for me, and Cam will probably be able to correct me if I'm wrong on this one, the console across all three of them, to me, looks like it's a red matter capacitor with a built-in leech that's activatable. That's what it looks like to me. And probably it's going to have something like a 2-minute cooldown. So you might not on fast run see a lot of use from it, but if you're in a prolonged firefight, maybe get to use it a couple of times. The weird thing for me is the console set bonus, though. Because for both, I believe, the Romulan and the Federation ships, they have a two-piece set, but they go on different consoles. For the Federation one, the two-piece set involves the new console and the cloaking device. And your two-piece set is a plus turn rate and defense increase. And the only reason I say the cloaking device because it's just a little weird to have that linked in. Me personally, considering recent ship releases like the Hestia, I would have thought the saucer separation console would have been linked in. But that's just my personal take on it. But still, it's... For me, that set's kind of meh. I couldn't see sacrificing one of my universals or a tactical console for that cloaking device for just that turn rate and defense, me personally.
I got a phone call. Bear with me a sec.
It's fine. Now, you have an Ensign Universal on this, whether it's the standard or the fleet. If you move to the Kara, which is your Romulan Haypacks, the difference between that is the Ensign is locked in as a tactical. Your Lieutenant Commander Engineering changes into a Lieutenant Commander Universal command. That, to me, with that layout, would give you a little bit more versatility. Because you've still got the same weapon loadout. It's still got, at fleet version, the same console layout. But I think with that bridge officer layout, you've got a little bit more versatility to run. I mean, you could run 3 tacticals on there. You could run another science. I could see some things in there. I know Spencer's probably got his own take on it. It probably wouldn't be as good as other starships out there. But I think something could be done with it. I really do.
I think out of the 3, the Kara there has the most potential.
I mean, I like the Yamato for tanking. It's probably going to have the raw damage output, but I could see it using other roles.
One of my issues with that, with the Yamato, is it goes back to the cloaking console, which I just can't see myself ever using something that I won't be able to get anything out of most of the match.
Yeah, and I'm the same reason. That's what I was saying with numerical superiority coming out on the Hestia, where it's counting saucer separation or multi-vector as a damage boost. I would have thought the saucer separation console would have been something in this set. That it's not, to me, is kind of a turn-off, because I would have liked to try out the saucer sep with this. I probably still will, but not for the console set.
Now, if the Andromeda console can be used on the Yamato, that might be pretty good.
True.
I think being able to break the caps just even by 5 is much more valuable than boost that's not going to break your caps when you already have so much power nowadays.
This is very true.
One thing I was thinking about with them doing that, though, is that I think the cloaking console is owned by a much wider audience than the saucer separation one.
This is true.
Or am I mistaken in that line of thought?
No, it's you got the saucer sep on one of the galaxies, but you have a cloaking device on the Tier 5 Dreadnought and on the Tactical Escort retrofit, along with a few others. Well, at least one other. I think there's one other.
No, it's just those 2 ships. So I just want to, I want to jump in here. The console that comes with the Tier 5 Galaxy X is the cloaking device. I believe it does come with the Defiant as well. I think those are the only 2 ships that come with it. There are other ships that can use it, namely the Avenger variants, the Tier 5 and Tier 6 Avengers, and the Aquarius, I believe, can now use it as well. They added that recently. Yeah. So that's why. It's because the cloaking device is the console of the Tier 5 Galaxy X. It's why this is part of the set here. The saucer separation is actually part of a completely different set, and that is the set for the Galaxy retrofit classes. So if you go back and look at the Andromeda, you'll notice that the saucer separation is actually part of that console set. So I think it might be a little bit too complicated to have one console be part of two different sets in that regard. Now, just I want to take a look here at the Yamato itself. I think it's a fairly decent ship. It is going to be a midway tanker. The reason I say that is because the main thing with tanking is not the survivability, it is the aggro generation. And most of the tanks these days, the really good tankers that we play with, they require more than two science consoles. They'll require 3 or 4 science consoles, and they put in the threat generating embassy consoles in there to help generate the threat. 2 science consoles might be a little bit low for generating aggro in there. Although since it is a dreadnought, it does come with the attract fire cruiser command, so that does help a little bit. Looking at the BOF layout on this thing, this is the pretty much the identical BOF layout that the Andromeda has. So the only difference between the Tier 5 and the Tier 6 Galaxy X is they turned the Lieutenant Tactical into a Lieutenant Commander. That, and they put in Command with the Lieutenant Commander Engineer. So it makes it a little bit more flexible, just a little bit. I believe what we used to do with the Galaxy X, the Tier 5 version, we used to run for like the DPS builds, we used to run a Tactical Team Beta 1 and FA 1. Now we can run Tactical Team Beta 1 and FA 3, and probably a Chemosite on the Ensign. Or you could run Tac Team Beta 1, Omega 1, and FA 1 in there. So it's just a little bit extra there. I'm not going to see it as a high-end DPS boat, and I don't see it as a high-end tanker either. Probably in the mid to halfway between mid and high-end is what I would see it as. Probably pretty comfortable that the ship will hit 75k. Not sure if it'll hit 100k and over without a little bit of cheese or nannying in there.
Oh, just a little bit of chemo plus torp spreadsheets, get it there.
Oh, go away. Go away.
Well, before I move to, for me, I'm thinking actually if I was running it as a tank, I would run Delta with Delta Prime, and also have it set up as an aux to bat. And that for me, Cam, I think that would run really well, because then you'd have your Chemosite Delta with Delta Prime and reciprocity with an aux to bat build. Wouldn't that make it a little bit?
No, you don't want to run aux to bat and reciprocity. That's just redundant.
Okay.
That's throwing away basically a trait. You'd either want to run aux to bat, which works actually pretty well on the ship, or you'd want to run reciprocity itself.
Okay.
You don't want to run both. But yeah, I would probably run it as a reciprocity build. And the thing is, with Delta, it has the same cooldown as Omega. So you do not want to run one copy of Delta. You want to run Delta and Omega, or Delta and Beta.
Well,
but not Delta. Not Delta by itself.
The reason I said Delta is because they also have the duty officer that increases threat generation that you can slot with that.
Okay, I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying that you cannot run Delta by itself. You're going to have a huge gap of about 30 seconds where you have no attack patterns.
Okay.
Now, one thing I'd actually look at this, and I could see this as one of many ships that can actually have a cannon loadout. Cannon as in, like, featured on the show, what we see on the show, torps and beams, and actually do well with the seating here. We could have overwhelm emitters, suppression barrage, concentrate firepower from the command seating, and then you can load up with your torpedo power, your energy, weapon power, and then you just go to town with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing that is nice with this ship is you can run a dual aux to dampeners build on this,
Very much so.
which is actually better than a single aux to dampeners build. The only problem with an aux to dampener build, a dual aux to dampener build, is you cannot use aux to structural integrity, which is pretty mandatory for tanking builds. You need that aux to sift for your heals. However, with aux to dampeners, if you use the DOF for that, and I can't quite remember his name right now, he gives you some. And not only does Oxidamp give you the increased turn rate and speed, it gives you a resistance bonus.
Yes.
That's the matter antimatter.
Antimatter. Yes, yes. And it also increases the duration of aux to inertial dampener, correct?
Yes,
By
it does.
8 seconds.
Yes.
By 8
Yes.
seconds, so it tends to overlap.
Yes. Yes,
And
it's
when they
very
overlap-
nice.
When it overlaps, the actual bonus to inertia and speed doesn't stack, but the resistances does stack. So you have that going for you. If you run that, you probably want to run some extra hull heals. Probably get the engineering team to on a shared cooldown just to keep up with those heals. Otherwise, you might have a little bit of problem. Although these days healing isn't that big of a problem. You got so many different sources of hull heal, not just from the bridge officers, but from traits as well. I don't think that would be a massive problem.
I kind of see this more like a jack of all trades for a tech and engineering type of build. You have survivability, you have offensive capabilities, and you could use the science slots for your heals if you need to, supplemented by the one Ensign Universal to do whatever you want with it, whether extra healing or defensive capabilities or offensive capabilities. And just walk around and, well, in this case, fly around, not be a slug tugboat, and dish out some decent firepower. And decent, like upper end decent to, very good firepower. So I kind of see this, at least the Fed one here, as the jack of all trades for a TAC engineering hybrid, where you have good defensive capabilities and good offensive capabilities. I want to go to the Romulan one here because this one, I want to ask you guys this, especially you, Cam, since you are the ship build master here. Lieutenant Commander Universal Command. Is there a universal seating that has a secondary seating as well, like Intel, Pilot, or Command? On any ship?
Yes. Not many. This is probably like the second or third ship that has it. I know there's a couple other ships that have it. I just can't remember them off the top of my head. But this is just something recent. I believe maybe the Anorax actually has that as well.
Possible. I wasn't sure if there was one of them, but I know that this right here is rare in and of itself, and this gives you a lot more flexibility than the other offering from the Fed side here. So Romulans who say they don't get enough love, shut up. You get plenty of love and then some.
Lies.
We still haven't even gotten to the Klingon one yet.
No, we haven't got to the Klingon one yet. And I wanted to save, in my opinion, what I appreciate and what I like. So I wanted to save that one for last there. Because this one, while this thing is an ugly seriously, what is this nonsense? Wow.
But what it offers for me, the other two are more, they're heavy, they're tanky. They've got a siege destroyer as the Klingon offering, and it's now a destroyer with a hangar bay, and it's got the destroyer package. You've got 7 tactical slots right off the gate on a 4-3 setup, and the Ensign Universal's still there. You've still got your Lieutenant Commander Engineering Command, and you've got 5 tactical consoles on both the standard and the fleet version. So this would be more of just hard hitting. You could probably get a lot out of it. Probably not as much as other ships, but at the same time, it plays more. That's one of the things I noticed. It plays more to the Klingon style of let's fire more weapons at the target. Let's hit them harder. So it plays differently than the Yamato or the Kara would.
I will tell you this, for any Klingon out there running a torpedo boat and you want to have something extremely hard hitting and you want it in a quote unquote dread style, this would be your boat for you. This right here would be the boat for you. If you're not a vet, you don't have the vet, this one will be the one for you. And with that pet, yeah, concentrate firepower, you're almost guaranteed to make sure that you get it, not somebody else.
Before I jump in about the Klingon ship, I just want to agree with you that the Romulan ship is pretty ugly. But then again, the Apex, the one it's based off of, was pretty ugly as well. Just to go talk about the Romulan one a little bit more, the bridge officer layout is fairly standard for a cruiser. If you look at most of the common cruisers, this is how their bridge officer layout is. No big surprise. Same thing with the console modifications. Very basic cruiser console layout. And the two-piece bonus, I believe they actually use the separation console here.
They did.
Yeah, which is because the console from the Tier 5 Apex is the actual separation console. All in all, I would say this is a fairly standard, middle-of-the-road dreadnought cruiser, I should specify. Nothing too special to push it ahead of the pack in terms of the dreadnought cruisers. But people will probably like it just because, the new updated graphics and stuff. And to add, I believe they also updated some of the graphics here. I think we should touch upon that after we're done with this one. Just to jump onto the Kolasi Siege Destroyer. And let me be clear here. The name Destroyer is a misnomer. This thing is an escort. The only thing destroyer-ish about it is the mastery package, which has basically the tier 2. Instead of getting the defense bonus that escorts get, it gets the crit severity that destroyers get. Other than that, this thing is an escort. The main difference between escorts and destroyers is the amount of device slots. Almost all the destroyers and warships get 3 device slots. Escorts get 2. This ship has 2 device slots. So, excuse me, but this is an escort. That being said, the Klingons really lucked out this time. They got a fantastic ship, and for once, they're ahead of the other factions here. It used to be that the Klingons had no heavy escort carriers, and now they have 2. Remember, they released a heavy escort carrier for the Klingons just a couple of months ago, with the package with the updated Akira and stuff. And now here's another one, heavy escort carrier. It is an escort with a hangar bay. Fantastic little ship. And just looking at some of the stats, this thing is going to be fast. Impulse modifier of 0.2. Not the fastest out there, but it is faster than most of the escorts out there. It says friction traction is 0.7. I'm going to assume this means a inertial rating of about 70. So this thing will turn on half a dime, on a nickel. Other than that, bridge officer layout, I agree, 7 seats for tactical is significant, means that you can pack in quite a lot of things in there. So you have your energy weapon bridge officers, plus your attack patterns, plus your tactical team, and then you can add chemosite and or torpedo powers in there if you decide to, or beam overloads or whatever it is. It comes with a lieutenant commander engineer with command. You're probably not going to be using command in there at all. You probably want to be using emergency power to weapons 3 and maybe a heal in some kind in there, maybe even a emergency powered engines. Since this ship is so fast, you probably want to use emergency powered engines in there just to give it a little bit extra speed. Other than that, it's a fantastic ship. People have been asking for a fleet Garumba since before the Tier 6s came out, since before Delta Rising has come out. And this is one of the earliest ships in the game, and it got left out in the fleet system. Now, not only do we get a fleet ship, we're getting a Tier 6 fleet ship, and it's probably the best one out of the pack. It's not a Dreadnought. It's in the Dreadnought package. It's not a Dreadnought, but it's a fantastic little ship.
I would agree with everything there except for the layout use of what you would use for the engineering command, but only because I am biased towards the kinetic community and a little bit towards command, because a lot of people tend to knock command seating between overwhelm emitters and concentrate firepower. If you're running a hybrid build, you're set. You're done. You have offensive capabilities with command. It may not seem like a lot, but especially with Tetrion making a comeback in popularity, plus Season 11 running right around the corner, we're going to see a lot of Disruptor and Tetrion builds starting to make a huge impact within the game itself. You're going to see command play a bigger role, in my opinion, a bigger role going forward than what it was for Season 10.
No disagreement there, although if you put in 2 command powers in that lieutenant commander's seat, you're not going to have a lot of place for engineering powers. I mean, you could use the Ensign Universal as a engineer as well, but that still only leaves you with 2 ensign level engineers.
In the name of every single Klingon warrior that has ever gone to Tovokor, to hell with defense. I'm going to blow my enemy up, and I won't have to worry about defense.
I'm sorry, a dead ship does no damage.
I won't be dead if my opponent is dead before they see me.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, the engineering powers are not just about defense. There is some offense in there, and of course, there's always the engineering team power, which, with modern STFs, is pretty mandatory if you're fighting Heralds, if you're fighting Bodwar. Hell, if you're fighting the Tholians, you need engineering team.
Agreed. And that's what the Ensign seat is for there. Not the Ensign Universal, but the Ensign within the Engineering Command. You have engineering team there, and then you can decide whether you want to use a second Universal to run them both in tandem, or to throw the Ensign Universal to something else, depending on the needs. You have that flexibility to have a little bit of defensive capability, but focus more on offense, or if need be, go more defensive with your engineering and less on command. But you have the flexibility within this ship. But this ship is designed more towards an offensive style of play, whereas the others, you can see the defensive or defense with flexibility built into it. This one says, I am offensive minded, treat me as offensive minded, even though I do have strong defensive capabilities if built that way.
One question I want to have. I remember that the lance on the Garumba, when you fired it, this is in the old days, I don't know if it's been changed, and that is my question. When you fired the Javelin lance, it used to shut off your other weapons. Is that still the case?
That I do not know. I haven't had any experience with that. But if that is the case, is it energy weapons only, or is it all weapons? That would be interesting to know.
Is there a Klingon in the audience? Please stand up.
Please stand up. One other thing I also want to bring up, the siege mode here. Anybody familiar with the siege mode for this class of ship?
I am not, but it's intriguing to say the least.
I want to know what type of siege mode do we have in this, and what bonuses do we get in siege mode itself. God, that is one ugly ship. But if the siege mode does give us a bonus to say all damage, but we're going to have a little bit more on our builds here, and we're probably going to have to come up with something between all of us here to showcase what we can do with a siege mode on this ship. Sarcasm, do you plan on getting this, whether the individual ships or the package itself?
I've been thinking about it, and as it stands right now, the problem is that this is released in the middle of the month. So immediately, no. Middle of the month, I can't be spending on ships. At the end of the month, however, I'm really not sure. I'm not really overwhelmed or even slightly whelmed at all by this ship. I was kind of excited about it. Initially when I heard the rumors, the leaks that it was coming out, but I went and got the Hestia instead. I spent my entertainment budget on that. So, and I'm really happy with the Hestia. So I'm not too sure. By the time the month is over and I have some money to spend on entertainment, we're probably going to be seeing season 11. We're probably going to be seeing another pack of ships, most probably the tactical escorts, the Defiance, come out with its pack of equivalent Romulan and Klingon ships. Plus, there's going to be the next lockbox ships out there. So, I know I'm meandering a little bit. Probably no.
There is something that I want to say about this, but I'm actually going to save it until next week's show. But I'm contemplating on making a purchase with these just to not do a review per se, but I'll leave that up to you and your very capable hands, but just kind of see exactly what the capabilities are for them and stretch the imagination on shipbuilding a little bit for this. I'm very interested in this siege mode here and what it is capable of doing. So we'll find out for a later time, and we'll give our report once we do have that information in hand on what that siege mode actually entails.
Here it is. Sorry.
Go on.
To enter siege mode. When in siege mode, the Garumba Siege Destroyer transforms into a devastating siege weapon, and power is diverted from engines to weapons. All your energy weapons will drain power from your target. This drained energy is diverted to charge your javelin. And I'll put the link in here for you. This is from Gamepedia, the Steel Wiki. There we go.
Thank you very much. We'll be adding that in. And Admiral Krause in the audience has also given us a brief explanation on it as well. So thank you very much for that. Something from Wayne Bruce. All your energy weapons will drain weapon power from your target. This drained energy is diverted to charge your javelin. So this ship here has a little bit more capabilities than what we see on paper right now.
Though the thing is, I really have problems with things that drain your engines, especially on an escort-like ship like this. Usually your engine power is very low, so you're going to be bringing yourself to a standstill. I know I had this issue with one of the pilot abilities that you can run on the pilot ships. Was it reroute reserves or something like that, which drains power from your engines and puts it into your weapon system?
Mm-hmm.
I think like the tier 1 level of that power, you can pretty much shut off your engines while you're firing. Didn't like that at all.
We did bring up something though concerning the Hestia and the package that a bunch of us has actually made a purchase on and tested out with various degrees of success on the Hestia. They did make a change that will be live tomorrow based off of the patch notes, that the Hestia slot, the instant slot that everybody wished would be a universal, congratulations, you got your wish. Cryptic has actually come through for the people and given us the Ensign Universal slot. So thank you very much, Cryptic, for listening to what we actually have to say in making this ship a better ship, and hopefully people will reward you with their wallets. If this has been a major hang-up for you as far as whether to make the purchase of the ship or not, you got your wish, so now it's on you.
I wouldn't say this is a major issue. It was a minor issue, but yes, Cryptic have listened to us. This is very encouraging. They listened to the opinions, especially of the reviewers. I know in my review of the ship, I mentioned it. I know Hersey mentioned it, as long as several others. It's really a minor thing. It's not gonna really change a lot in the ship. It just gives you just a little bit more flexibility in your build designs and your build choices for the ship.
I will say this, that little bit of flexibility can mean a difference, for some high-end runs. And even for people who aren't chasing DPS, it's a good quality of life improvement for them. For some people, that instant slot literally was the difference between a purchase and a non-purchase. And I was on the fence with it, but I said, let me take a chance on it anyway. I want this seat to be a universal. I gambled, and my gamble paid off in this case. So thank you, Cryptic, for, thumbs up. I had faith, I took a chance, and you came through. Thank you.
A quick note from the audience as far as the siege mode. It's a minus 50% turn rate, plus 10 weapon power, minus 10 engine power, adds weapon power drain to all energy weapons. Thank you, John, for that. So it's a significant decrease to your turn rate.
So yeah, when they say siege mode, they literally mean it. Your ship cannot move anymore. Not only are you getting minus 10 to engines when you're firing your weapons, it drains your engines even further. So don't plan on getting anywhere fast.
We don't expect to. Come on, we're in siege mode. One other thing here, while we're giving kudos to Cryptic on this one. We're giving another set of kudos to Cryptic, specifically Borticus and his team working on the Admiralty System, where if you have patched Tribble recently or checked out the notes, you'll find out that the Admiralty System has been changed. Good stuff on that system. Better quality of life improvements, something that actually encouraged people to play instead of having to wait forever and a day for the ships to be ready. The time between maintenance has been shortened significantly. The formula is actually posted on the Tribble notes, but pretty much, long story short, for those folks who just say, hey, I want to play and have fun with it, you can play and have fun with it. You don't have to wait that long in between. I think the longest is like 18-hour wait.
The longest is 18 hours. The shortest is now 30 minutes. They increased the timers on the Tier 1 and Tier 2 ships, and Tier 4 to Tier 6 got reductions that were scaled massively, which is nice when you're running a Tier 6 ship in there. It's no longer a 36-hour cooldown. It's now 18. So it's still a wait. And you still have to, it's basically still representative of what he wanted as far as thinking out what ships you're sending out and trying to manage it better. But at least you're not sitting there for a day and a half waiting for a ship to unlock for maintenance.
So good job, guys, on making that a much better system to be able to use and play. For people who may, I'm not saying they would, but who may complain that's too long, come on. If you're dolphing already, you got missions that are running anywhere between 20 to 48 hours, sometimes even longer, for halfway decent rewards. Don't complain on this one here. 18 hours, yeah, that to me, that's a good sweet spot. Of course, opinions may vary. I respect your opinions. But 18 hours seems to be a sweet spot, especially considering the type of rewards that you can get from this system.
Now,
Yes.
my question with this, I haven't had time to go over and mess with it myself, but is the timer starting when the assignment finishes, or do you have to hit the button, then the timer starts for that ship?
Based off of what I saw, once you complete the mission, as in you collect the rewards and whatnot, that's when the timer starts.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not like, oh, here's your cooldown, starting on when we come back and notify you. No, you actually have to accept it before the cooldown starts.
Here's one interesting I noticed with the Admiralty system, and this would probably benefit people who do not have a lot of high-end ships like yours truly and some of the rest of us here. When completing certain Admiralty missions, sometimes the reward that you get is a high-end ship card, like the Shishar, for example. Several people have claimed that they have gotten Shishar, and I've actually seen the screenshots of that. So some of these rewards will actually give you ships to use in the Admiralty system. I don't know if those cards are permanent or not. I think they're just
One
one-use
times.
cards. Yeah, they're one-time cards. So even if you don't have a lot of tier 6 ships and you send them off and they're locked for 18 hours and you're out tier 5, tier 6 ships for your next Admiralty mission, you're likely going to end up with some free cards that you can use in that place instead. So that is certainly very, very interesting. And again, I really appreciate the fact that Cryptic and the developers are listening to our feedback and implementing them. And I guess it's helpful that a lot of people giving the feedback aren't just throwing vitriol and feces at them. Oh, I hate this. This sucks. Change it. And they're actually giving good feedback saying, well, if was this way, it would be a little bit better. So it's a two-sided thing. Good on the devs for listening, and good on the community itself for giving constructive feedback as well.
Emphasis on the constructive feedback, and emphasis on Cryptic listening to the constructive feedback, and not just saying, oh, you implemented something we said, great. You implemented something we said that was actually a good idea, and you kept your own flavor to it, your own intentions to it, your own uniqueness to it as well. So good job all around for everybody, both who tested it out and provided constructive feedback, and for the developers to listening to constructive feedback and implementing it while still keeping true to what they wanted to do with the system in the first place. So everybody, good job all around.
And the system has a lot of great rewards hidden into it. If I was looking at it correctly, as you're completing tiers, you're also getting rewards. From what I was seeing, the first tier is 30k dilithium, and if I understood it correctly, tier 2 completion gives you 2 specialization points for completing. So I haven't gone past tier 2 yet, but it seems like not only are you getting the bonuses like free ship cards or pass tokens, R&D materials, they're actually giving out some really nice high-end stuff that a lot of casual players might not have a chance to grind for.
Yes, but I believe there is a cooldown on some of those rewards. You can, I believe the 2 spec points or the 30k deal, I think you have a choice between them, actually. You can only get them once every 2 weeks. I think that's really specific to the actual 2 spec points. You can only pick those up once every 2 weeks, which is fair.
Very fair. All right, moving on. Public service announcement from the DPS League itself. Anybody who is worried about their placement, their numbers, friendly competition as it may be, or even just saying, I want an accurate measurement of my numbers going forward to be able to see whether I'm good for advanced or elites, and you're concerned about the chemo cheesing that is plaguing every single STF out there.
Dear God.
Yes, it's there. It's plaguing it. People wondering what's going on. Whether you're a competitive number chaser or whether you're just trying to enjoy the game without having your own game client lock up or freeze or slow down on you. You're wondering why you can't perform while all these other people are throwing up huge numbers. Don't worry about it. Cryptic already acknowledged they're going to address Chemosite either at or before Season 11. So that portion will get addressed, hopefully a fix, not a nerf. Thank you very much. And once that is, well, even if they quote unquote nerf the damage slightly, and I say slightly, like 10% off the top, fine, okay, I'll even concede that. But But one, can we get an animation reduction on that and destabilize resonance beam? And two, is there a way we can clean up the client to do the output of the log file? Because it seems to be that while a lot of people are lagging tremendously, and when I say lagging is stutter, frame rates, or no activity at all on their client, is that the log file needs to take all this data that's being downloaded to it and then output it into a text file, and that is just chopping at the bit on the client. The client said, hold on, please wait while I get all this data from the server, and then once I output it, you can continue on with your game.
No.
For some people, if you actually make a hard link for the log files and dump it to like a fast solid state drive that's on a separate physical drive itself, you could see a performance increase. I've even told some people dump it over to like a virtual RAM drive, and your lag will disappear altogether. As far as that is concerned, anything that's going to do almost a near instantaneous number dump into the log file, throw that log file up onto either a virtual RAM drive or a solid state drive, a physical solid state drive that's separate from anything else, and the output will go, all right, you're done, move on, next. And you won't have to deal with this pain. I've done that, and I can run through with all the chemo cheesers and not have to worry about my screen locking up on me constantly.
I would see adding an option to change where the log file is being saved. That would actually be a nice quality of life improvement for the game itself, without having to, go in and actually modify your folder to make it point to a different direction. All that technical stuff, like 99% of the people out there have no idea how to do that. The problem is that the log file output is part of the engine, and these kind of things are not going to be touched. Anytime you're going to look at a change to the engine, forget about it. It is never going to happen. All the modification changes, updates we're seeing are basically add-ons to the game, like a module that you tack onto the game. They have not changed anything on the engine level of the game, because that is, would be, the slightest mistake is going to completely break the game down. They are not touching the engine. Trust me on that. And because the log file is part of the engine from way back in the day when it used to be running, Champions Online or whatever the game was before that. So it's ancient
Champs
code.
and City of Heroes, yep.
Yeah, it's ancient code. It's never going to be changed. But let's go back to Chemosite. People are saying nerf. No, Chemosite does not need to be nerfed, and nerfing it would be very dumb. Let's get this straight.
Target cap.
This is a lockbox item. Lockboxes is where Cryptic makes most of their money, and messing with stuff from the lockbox is a very bad idea for them. They're not going to do it. Fixing it, however, is a better idea. Here's the thing. There are two problems with Chemosite. Number one is the double proc, where you activate it, and on activation or whatever, whenever your weapons are firing, it's going to activate, and whenever your weapons hit, it activates. Fix that. We only need the one activation. That's fine. The second problem with it is that it double activates when you're just firing your weapons. You don't actually have to activate the ability. Just having it slotted and firing your weapons will cause it to proc. Fix that as well. Just getting rid of those double procs is going to be fantastic, because right now they're double procking all the time. Just have it proc once when you activate it should relieve a lot of those problems, especially the lag problems. It's going to cut down on the amount of calculations that you have, anywhere from 50 to 75% or more. That will just fix it right there. Reducing the damage that it does or the debuff that it does, no, it is fine as it is. It might even be a little bit underpowered, what I believe is that they probably should give it a little bit of a debuff boost or damage boost when they actually fix it, just to compensate for the little bit of loss that we get on it. Maybe a target cap, just to limit the amount. Maybe limit it to about 5 targets, 10 targets. I'm not into that. Let the devs decide for themselves what would be a good idea at that point. As for the DPS leagues, the admins, we have been discussing this, and let it be known, if you have a record on the DPS list, if your record was achieved using Chemosite and a torpedo, a torp spread, or whatever it is, most likely your record's going to be removed. But you're free to upload the record again. Not the same record, because that's gone, but do another ISA, whatever it is, and upload a new record as a replacement. If you're running beams, or if your Chemosite is totaling less than 10k or even less than 5k DPS, you don't have to worry. Your record's going to remain as it is. But exceedingly large Chemosite parses, like 5k and over, or anything with a torpedo, is going to get removed.
No, I don't have a problem with the whole torpedo thing. And in all actuality, I want all my records wiped so that I can go and redo it again once Chemosite is fixed. What I've seen beforehand is that all beams who stack Chemosite still get absurd Chemosite proc rates that are still doing damage at absurd rates, akin to the old Embassy console, where if one procs, all of them proc, and if one crits, all of them crit. So we are still seeing this as well, or at least something akin to that. Now, if you're using Chemosite, you're Chemosite cheesing, the admins definitely have acknowledged this. All this is right now, just like the old Krenim consoles and the old Embassy console things when they were running away. Go ahead, have your fun. The table's going to get wiped as far as whoever's chemo cheesing, and they're going to have to resubmit. So for those people who are actually competing for the numbers for whatever it is and you're feeling discouraged, don't. One, it's a game. Two, don't worry about it. So it's been discussed and addressed, and it will be implemented once a fix for Chemosite comes into play. Other than that, have fun with the game. For people who want to be able to do better numbers, there are plenty of people out there willing to teach you. There are plenty of videos and guides out there that are willing to help, from Reddit STO builds to Sarcasm ship builds to Timberwolf and his journey to going from what some people consider low DPS or entry-level DPS into the absurdly high DPS and how they do it, as well as transitioning from your ISA map, where you can just score, test yourself as far as DPS, to other STFs where you're actually having to do these tips and tactics that you've learned and then tested yourself out in ISA. So he's got some real life videos out there that are putting you, quote unquote, in real life situations outside of ISA to show what you can do when you have better DPS. And you don't need to be a DPS chaser to be good at doing damage and enjoying the game. It definitely helps, especially if you want to challenge yourself with some of the harder queues. And with Season 11 coming around, Counterpoint is not going to be a walk in the park. And you're going to need to be able to push numbers in order to be able to defeat the advanced and elite queues.
Yeah. One thing I want to point out, the DPS League, what we pride ourselves on, or what we want to do with the actual table, is to make sure that the table represents the current meta of the game. So if there is a major change, like a nerf or a fix that affects the meta, we want to make sure that the records on that table reflect the current meta of the game post-nerf. That's why, for example, all the updates you have right now, all the records you have on the table right now, are post-Embassy console nerf, for example. Some other leagues out there, they will keep their records ad infinitum, and you'll pull that parse down and you'll look at it and you'll see stuff in there that, well, this doesn't exist in the game. We can't get this in the game anymore. How come this is still a record? You won't have that with the DPS League. So you have that going for you.
Thank you very much. One other thing we want to do before we wrap up the show and go into what we're going to discuss for next week, while we typically just stick to Star Trek Online within the show for Trek Wednesday, this one is just too important to pass up. And it actually, in a sense, relates to Star Trek, because this is one of the things that Trek itself has inspired people to do, to be interested in the sciences, to be able to aspire to be science technologists, engineers, and mathematicians, and to be able to expand the human mind as far as science and technology is concerned. We see something on the show, they say, oh, this looks nice. Warp fields. This never existed before. You know what? We'll have somebody by the name of Alcubierre go back into his room and say, I just watched an episode of Star Trek. Warp fields. I wonder if I can make this thing a reality. And then he writes a bunch of field equations to prove mathematically that warp fields can be generated and you can actually move a massive object faster than the speed of light. So Trek inspires real-life science. Well-written science fiction has helped inspire real-life science and technology. And we've seen this happen over and over in history, and now we're seeing it again here in Star Trek. Now, indirectly, the Nobel Prize winners for this year, one Arthur B. McDonald and one Takaki Kajita, if I mispronounce your name, please forgive me, have won a Nobel Prize for showing that neutrinos have a small amount of mass. Now, for the general public, you'd be like, what does this mean? Oh, neutrinos, they have a small amount of mass, big whooping deal. Neutrinos are like the neutral electron in the universe of subatomic particles. And them having mass, any sort of mass altogether, could be a monumental breakthrough for astronomy and astrophysics. And the moment somebody comes up with an ingenious idea to be able to tie this insight into the subatomic world, into something else, they'll be able to generate either a concept or an idea that could make general relativity look like, I don't know, thinking that rocks that are rounder can roll easier. In comparison, something like that. Very much so, because you think, okay, well, what good is general relativity when people thought about, oh, this is a nice thing. What does it do? Oh, look, we can actually see starlight bending around a star. What does that do for us? Well, for astronomy, it's great stuff. But for everyday people, you have GPS. And if it wasn't for general and special relativity, your GPS wouldn't be accurate. So if you're wondering what these type of discoveries can do for you, wait 10 or 15 years and you'll find out why it's so important that a neutrino we found out why a neutrino has a little bit of mass. You might have a commercially viable project or product for you that'll be doing something monumentous for you, or you can't live without it in 10, 15, or 20 years. It may be a scientific breakthrough for the physicists, and they're having a nerd field day with it, and then medicine will come around and say, wait a second, we have something new now to be able to infer these type of elements within the body at these ratios here. So we can invent a neutrino scanning device that will help analyze whatever tissue that you have inside your body without being invasive. That will help with the tricorder project that John Hopkins is putting out a real monetary contest for. They want to see something like that. So this neutrino here could help us either scan the human body without being requiring invasive surgery, or our high-end radiation fields. We won't have to run nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. Some people forget the nuclear part of it, but that's very important. Who knows what's going to come with it? So, to our Nobel Prize winners in physics, it may not seem like much to the general public, but this is a monumentous discovery here, and we don't know what we can do with it in the future, but we know it's important, and something good will come out of this in the future.
Yeah, that's most of the technology we have or are using nowadays. This advanced technology, everything from the computer that you're sitting in front of right now to the smartphone you have had their roots in astronomy, astrology. Sorry, one of those is not right, but you know what I'm talking about.
Not
The space,
astrology, it's
not
astronomy.
astronomy, the space program, physics, all that stuff plays a really important role in that. Even in medicine, for example, the PET scanner that medicine used to, scan your brain, your pick up your brain waves and stuff like that. That actually uses antimatter. Did you know that? It actually bombards your brain with antimatter, and that is what is used to pick up the brain waves or the path of the electrons take in your brain.
They
That's
actually use positron collisions, and then which is the reverse, the antiparticle of the electron, and so they
it's
detect the
antimatter.
collisions in it. Yeah, it's antimatter. So yes, he's right. It's antimatter.
Okay. So the two people that we're talking about, there's two of them. They both co-won the Nobel Prize for Physics, not for the same experiments. They both, each one did their own little experiment, and they were complementary. The first one is a Canadian by the name of Arthur B. MacDonald, which is a very Canadian name, by the way. Our first prime minister was John A. MacDonald. This one is Arthur B. MacDonald. And his test was he discovered that neutrinos created in the heart of the sun changed their flavor on their way or when they left the sun. And changing their flavor means they have a mass, as an example. And this experiment was done in I think it was an abandoned nickel mine
Yes.
in Surrey here in Canada, which is about 2 kilometers underground.
Now,
Something.
if I remember correctly, I think this was the one where they use uranium hexafluoride, and then if it was bombarded by one of the colored neutrinos, that it would release. I have to remember the chemistry behind it. Oh, the physics behind it for the chemistry, but it would change the isotope of one of the chloride atoms in the hexafluoride, and that would be the indicative of a neutrino interacting with that atom. And so if it did that, then boom, we knew neutrinos were hitting it.
It
And
had a
it
mass.
happens so infrequently because neutrinos are so. It's called a WIMP, a weakly interacting. Well, now it should be classified as a WIMP, a weakly interacting massive particle. Well, except it's not really massive; it has a tiny mass, but still, it passes through everything. Like our body, every day we're bombarded by neutrinos. It passes through the Earth. It passes through everything. But it very, very weakly interacts with atoms, and it changes the isotope to the point where we can detect it. We're saying, okay, the only thing that we can mathematically show that would change this isotope in this way would be a neutrino hitting this neutron and then changing it. Boom. Now we can detect it. Great. What does this mean? They're still working on that part.
Still working, yeah. The second person is a Japanese person named Takaaki Kajita, and I'm not sure if that's the correct way to pronounce it or not.
Okay.
And he had a similar experiment, not the same one. And what he discovered is that neutrinos created in the Earth's atmosphere by cosmic rays can change their flavor. Again, changing their flavor means that they have mass. So, two different experiments using two different sources of neutrino found pretty much the same result. That's why we're saying they're complementary experiments. And this earned both of them the Nobel Prize in Physics this year, 2015. Congratulations to both.
Congratulations, guys. And congratulations to science for getting what we thought was a done deal as far as neutrinos are concerned. It just opened our eyes. So we're going to have to rewrite the textbooks and all the charts that we had there, and going to shift neutrinos over to a color spectrum, which means that quantum physics is going to have to revise a couple things because they were basing a lot of the off the assumption that neutrinos were massless. So yeah, how does this relate to Star Trek Online? Well, anything that required neutrinos in any other episodes are not going to have to be rewritten. Scrub it. That's old info. It's incorrect now. Science has proved otherwise, or has shown otherwise. In this case, though, we want to celebrate this science, and in hopes that somebody will be able to use it, whether through a Foundry mission or something, to be able to say, oh, we have this discovery here with neutrinos, blah, 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 write a mission around it, and this is what will interfere with a ship or a ground mission, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, coming up with the show for next week, we have a couple things we want to talk about. Specifically, where's the elite queues for a lot of the missions that we're used to running that had the elite queues but then were removed around the Delta Rising time period? Where are they? Are they going to come back in season 11?
And maybe a fix to some of the rewards of the current elite queues.
Please. Yes, please. Season 11, Exploration. Is it going to ever be out? Is it going to be on Tribble? What is the exploration system?
Exploration.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, you know this thing where Amerigo Vespucci was actually sailing, and then he read what Christopher Columbus did and say, I don't think he found India. I think he found a new world. That sort of thing. That's exploration.
Interesting.
You know? Yes. And Snipey 47 Alpha, actually, this was done in proxy by his husband, SOB. Something about a neutronic torpedo nerf because energy weapons feel threatened these days. They want to nerf torpedoes. But Season 11 seems to be about the rise of the torpedo, the kinetic community. What is going to happen here?
I wouldn't worry about Snipey too much. He's not here at the moment, but we've said this to him to his face plenty of times. He pretty much only wants to nerf stuff that kills him.
Well, yeah, that kills him over and over again. And we're going to go on with the Design Your Ship, the next part of that series. And we're going to also discuss something else that's coming up here. A charity event that I believe that Timberwolf is taking lead on over here. Please talk about. We're gonna just a brief mention before we end the show right here. We're gonna sign off with what you have to say. So give a brief mention about your charity event, please.
Yeah, I'll describe it more next week. But basically, next weekend I'm gonna do a 2-day long live stream as best as possible. I'm gonna try and get a few people to help me to cover gaps that I might fall asleep for, to be perfectly honest. Raising money for the Multiple Sclerosis Society. Very good charity, do bicycle rides for them all the time, and I'm just thinking, why not combine with what I do currently for fun, raise some money for a good charity. So it'll be on from Saturday morning to Sunday evening.
We'll be sure to check it out and help you out with it. So for those who are here in the audience, we want to say thank you very much for tuning into the show. And on behalf of Cheesy Tactics, our Chief Intelligence Officer, and our Chief Logistics Officer, I am the guy who's just crazy to get back into space. We'll see you out there. Have a good night, folks.
Good night.